In my last video, I said how I would reform education, and one of the main policy proposals I argued would substantially benefit this country is a better civics class, as well as it being mandatory, so we understand the functions of our government and how to get around it, uh, you know, how to understand all of its bells and whistles implications and so forth, how to navigate our role in that, as well as I argued we needed a psychology class to better understand ourselves and the world around us. You could perhaps include sociology in that class as well as a course to better understand how the world and in particular systems affect us. I said that we needed an ethics class that also covers philosophy, and through these classes we could come to understand how to recognize propaganda, how to question authority and the government, and how to be more politically literate as a result, thereby creating an informed and intelligent population that could then go on to affect change in the government in a way that would closer represent the interests of everybody in the country and, perhaps the world. But in a world where these reforms are made that serve to make our democracy more healthy, we also need reforms to the democracy itself to improve how much it actually represents us, which, given the system that we have right now, I don't think is very much, and also improve the rate of participation from this newly politically informed population. How would we exactly do that? I think one immediate way is mandatory voting. And if, for example, voting day was a national holiday and no one had to work on that day, it would be pretty fucking easy to institute mandatory voting. Of course, you wouldn't have to vote for any of the established parties. You could just write in a funny joke candidate or vote for a meme party or something if you truly want to protest and if you feel as though none of the candidates on the ballot represent you. You're free to do that. And so I think for those people, it stands to not take anything away from them. It does not stand to negatively affect their life in any way. It only stands to benefit the rest of the population, most people who would feel as though they could be represented better, and voting on those representatives and voting on those issues would then serve to enfranchise people. I think if we have more people voting and more people are informed about the issues, it's only going to lead to the democracy being more healthy, because those people are going to be voting on issues in an informed way. And if there's more of them doing so, then the population as a whole is going to be better represented. If you have only 20%, 15 or 10% of the country voting, the people who are the most politically active, the most passionate, that's not even tyranny of the majority, which I think is a valid criticism of democracy as a system. In fact, it's a criticism I have, even though I think it's as far as systems go, the best thing we got, even though it ain't great. That's not even tyranny of the majority. That's tyranny of the minority. That's the most passionate, the most vociferous, the most ravenous individuals of all of us, dictating the outcome of the decisions that affect all of us. And that to me is just patently absurd. And so by putting the power back into the hands of the people, which is really what voter enfranchisement does, through mandatory voting, through further political education and you know uh, the induction of the people into broader political consciousness is going to do. Um, in addition to that, I, I think I would institute a number of other electoral reforms, namely uh, the whole land equals votes thing that we have going on in this country. I don't think makes very much sense. Like the fact that Wyoming, a state with about five 500,000 people, has the same amount of senators as California with 40,000. Like this just makes no sense, and it's something that makes so little sense that at the state level we've actually recognized this. Um, when you vote in your local elections for your state representative for your county or municipality, and your state senator for your county or the area that you're in, um, you know, it's based on the area that you're in, and so the state senate and the state reps are they're local. You know, you don't have two senators for your state government that's voted on by everybody in the state. You have like 70, you know, and they represent those different areas so that those constituencies, based on their population, based on their demographics, and a whole host of other factors that go into designing the maps so that people are equally represented, um, you know, that's what the maps are based on. And so why don't we have the same system for our Senate at the federal level? When the states already have the answer for this, it seems like kind of a no-brainer. Um, in addition to that, I think we need a lot more direct ballot initiatives. I think just giving the issue to the people is going to usually yield a result that is progressive in nature, even in hyper-conservative states. When they give the issue directly to the voters, they almost always vote for the progressive option. So it shows how dysfunctional our government is when you have people who are elected in government taking the positions of the extreme minority, because it's only an extreme minority that votes them in, or they don't expect to get pushback from their population. You know, when people are voting for parties that vote against their own interests, that's a sign of a dysfunctional system. And so I think just straight up giving the laws to the people is another big way of ameliorating that. But also there needs to be a crackdown on gerrymandering, the practice of drawing the maps in a manipulative fashion to disproportionately benefit one party. And this is something that happens in blue and red states. It's not a partisan issue. It's an issue with both sides in these states that have very democratic state legislatures, and they have the governor's mansion and the state Supreme Court, because of who appoints them, is in the favor of the ruling party. And they end up signing off on these maps that are deeply unfair, that lead to certain sections of the state, you know, being completely left out of the process. There needs to be hard and fast rules against these practices in order to ensure that our government at the federal and state level is representative of our values and is representative of the people there. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the two crucial things here are going to be, you know, mandatory voting on the holiday, and you know, doing away with the Senate as it is today. I mean, obviously, getting rid of the Electoral College is kind of a no-brainer, because it's, once again, this land equals votes system playing out, where a certain amount of electoral votes is guaranteed to big states, and the little ones have less. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's created a situation where people who have lost in the popular vote have gone on to win the presidency anyhow. and that's just affirmative action for states that have a certain amount of land, and you know, obviously that needs to be done away with as well. Um, Another thing I think should be in place is reasonable regulation on media. There needs to be an independent body that regulates what you can and cannot say on television, on the radio, and so forth. The fact that there is such a high prevalence now of new, quote unquote, news that is just entirely sensational and unrepresentative of reality has done nothing but sow division and polarization in the population. And there need to be rules that clearly state that you cannot lie, that you have to report the objective truth in a nonpartisan manner. And you can have editorialization or your own opinions, but you cannot lie on television about things that are factual matters. Um, I think that would be another thing to help in this regard. I mean, I've also talked before about how I think there needs to be a crackdown on anti-democratic extremism, both from the left and the right. You know, if you're on the far left, or especially on the far right, and you're advocating for subversive, anti-democratic tendencies in your organization, and you're attempting to run for office on a platform of that nature, you should just be arrested. Attempting to disseminate information as well on that platform, you should be arrested. These people serve no purpose in a democratic society. The only purpose they serve is to organize around its downfall, which we've seen where that has led to historically. Autocrats have been elected into power and then done away with the very systems that led them to get there in the first place. And if we look at, in the United States, something like anti-Semitic causes or various hateful extremist causes, they only poison the discourse. Like, there is no material or subjective or social benefit to having those people in the conversation, because all they do is lie. Like, if I'm out there having a debate with people from various sides of the spectrum, your conservatives that are a little further to the right, you've got some libertarians on the panel, some liberals, progressives, and so forth. You can have a balanced discussion on that panel with people from all across the ideological spectrum. But the moment that you introduce a far right or far left anti-democratic extremist, conspiracy theorist, these people are like, they're going to poison the well. You're going to have to spend the entire panel responding to the insane statements they make and trying to get everyone to agree on the fact that the sky is blue, when they've ended up taking 40 minutes out of the panel, just spouting their conspiracies and autocratic views. I think giving airtime to that, it only creates a situation where they benefit, and it centers the conversation around just getting everyone to agree on a basic set of facts. The conversation is completely reoriented around that, instead of being oriented around substantive policy disagreements that affect everyone and that are matters pertaining to the country. I don't think we see any benefits from having these people in our society, and I don't think you can have a democratic society with these elements in it. I don't think they belong there. And that doesn't mean, we should lock them away to get into, federal pound me in the ass prison or something. I think they should be rehabilitated. we should have rehabilitative prisons that humanize these people and allow for them to, explore various perspectives and, not receive ideological training, but receive empathy and care. Um, and so we do need to be cracking down on anti-democratic elements, but at the same time we need to be expanding who our democracy exactly applies to, and we also need to be uh, creating systems through which people can come to have political education and learn how to um, disseminate information and come to their own point of view on these issues. We need to have voter enfranchisement, um, but I think we can only get there through, at the same time, cracking down on these anti-democratic elements and expanding our democracy and making participation in that democracy mandatory.